Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. This is Kero Riri Paddle, and today we're sitting down with a very special guest. How are you, Shaybs?
Hey, it's Shaybs. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate this. I'm actually super excited for this interview because I am a shameless fan of yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, do you think you could tell us a little bit about yourself and the kind of content that you make?
I have a main channel where I make anime videos, essay videos, essay type content. And on that channel, I also make animated music videos, AMVs, those classics, back in the day thing. I still make them occasionally. And then on my second channel, I have I kind of a weekly series called AniTube Digest, where I talk about other people's anime YouTube videos, mostly positively. It's not more like this video shit, this video shit. It's more like a constructive thing because I understand that a lot of people are probably going to see that. Like the creators themselves will probably see it. So like I would want it to be more constructive than anything. Outside of YouTube, I don't really make YouTube my career. I mean, I have a Patreon, but like that's just for so my parents
Like, are you making money off all the work that you're doing? Or
but I don't want to like monetize the channel or anything or like get ads on it or something. But what I do for a living, I'm very fortunate to actually be working in the anime industry. I work for a company that contracts mostly for discotheque media. So I work on mostly their discs and occasionally some other stuff like Anime Limited. Like there's a certain series I worked on, but like I don't know if I'm still NDA'd on it. But yeah, I've been working on helping to produce their Blu-rays. Very kind of a multitude of different things. Like just now before I went on this podcast, I was working on recreating the Japanese credits for this one OVA that we have. They have like it's like a new transfer, like a new restoration. It looks great, but it was missing all of the text. So they gave me the Japanese characters, like all the kanji, and I just put them in the appropriate style and in the appropriate timing, like back into the thing. So like stuff like that. I've also been working on like special features and stuff. But yeah, it's fun and cool. Yeah, it's just basically what I do.
It does sound really cool. The fact that you're working not only in the anime industry, but you're working with content creators that love anime, I can tell that this is truly your lifeblood.
Yeah. I made a point in one of my videos that was more personal and talking about like my history that there was a point since about 2015 that I haven't thought about anime at least once. Like it really has just kind of totally, totally changed my life and kind of consumed it. But that's more of a pessimistic term to call it consume, I guess. But but yeah, I love it.
I don't know. I don't know if I would say it's pessimistic because anime, especially the direction that it's going in nowadays, it really is incredible. I've always felt that anime is one of the greatest art forms to have ever existed. And some people might think that's hyperbole. Some people might think that I'm looking a little bit too deeply into it. But just seeing the way that it has changed in the mainstream over the last few decades, and even the fact that it's been around for so long and how it's evolved and the future of anime, even, I do think it's something that historians will look back and realize that this is one of the great inventions. I don't know if it's the eighth wonder of the world, but I do know that it's something very special. And what you're doing is part of that. And I'm really looking forward to talking more about anime with you and figuring out why you do the things that you do.
Yeah, thing is, to your point with like being kind of one of the greatest inventions and stuff. I do think about it logically, where animation in general as a medium, I do think is kind of the ultimate storytelling art form because it's audio visual and because it's animated, you can literally make it to be whatever you want it. You're able to tell any story and at any length and any level of complexity and of course artistry. Like there's a whole bunch of art to this, and people make it not just the animation itself, but like the art direction and the backgrounds and the character designs and like the actual art of it, right? There's a tweet that I retweeted that I saw somebody talk. They were rewatching this older show from 1975 called Gamba no Boken, which is it's pretty formative. It's referenced in later anime and stuff, but it was directed by Osamu Dezaki, who's my favorite director, and I can't shut up about him. This tweet was like, "This show is literally animated fauvism," and like the fauvism is like an artistic movement. I only just like Google searched it. I didn't look into it or anything like that, but like something like that, right? It's like, yeah. Or you look at Akagi no An, Anne of Green Gables, this show from 1979 that was directed by Isao Takahata, who's the Grave of the Fireflies guy, and Hayao Miyazaki was involved in it, whatever. But like the characters are literally running through oil paintings, is what I like saying about that show. It's like that's insane, that's incredible. And so it's like live action can't possibly capture that, and you can imagine it all you want in your head, but to me, like I'm discouraged from reading books personally because I vision this really impressive, like, I'm picturing the whole image in my head, but I'm not able to share that with other people because it's in their own head, right? So like, I much prefer storytelling as an audio-visual experience out of everything. And then out of audio-visual experiences, I think animation has the most potential. And then out of all of animation, it's not like I will say that like seeing, Soviet Union cartoons or French or German or an American, like all these different world animations, they're all good, but there really isn't any other country of origin that is actually explored and done as much as anime has. Like the breadth and risk taking and they've done everything. You know what I mean? It's completely boundaryless. So yeah, it is my medium of choice for that reason.
That was really well said.
Thank you.
Wow. How did you discover anime?
Honestly, kind of recently. I'm not gonna say I was there back in the day. I was like, I'm not like I've been watching it since I could crawl or something like that. There's some people that are very dyed in the wool in that way. I rented Ghibli films from the library when I was a kid, or like seeing it on like 4Kids or something like on Saturday mornings because my parents didn't have Disney or Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. So Saturdays, that was my only exposure to it. And so that's like a lot of people. Like I wouldn't say I was there for Toonami or anything. I was just very passively into it, like the same as you're into like, oh yeah, I'm into video games, but like as much as everybody, I guess, or whatever. But it wasn't until college that I was getting more into it. And I remember asking somebody like, oh, can you recommend me some animes? And he wrote down like on a sheet of paper some shows and whatever. But like it was around 2014 where the dam really broke for me, and I started like, okay, I have to actually watch some of this stuff. And like it was like the advent of Kiss anime that just had everything. So I was like, oh, I could just watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes or just any of this older stuff if it catches my interest. And I would just way more like had to sink into it. I also was introduced to Hummingbird. I talk about this on a lot of different podcasts, but I repeat this a lot. So I'm sorry if people who have listened to a lot of stuff, but like Hummingbird, which was like it's Kitsu now, but it's basically my anime list, like, right, with like this database of like exploring all this anime and making this huge plan to watch. And then on Hummingbird, there was one guy that kept popping up that he had like the top rated review for all of these different anime. And then you look at his profile and he's seen over 1,000 of them. I'm like, holy crap, who is that? And it turns out to be that Anime Snob. If you've heard about him.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So he had like a blog on like AniTube. He was mostly on AniTube, and he just kind of copy pasted his reviews to Mal and Hummingbird and stuff. But on AniTube, he had like a lot of like long form blogs about like the history of anime, and I remember reading it. I'll never forget like reading this thing where it's just like, oh, the 60s had this, the 70s had this. the 80s had this, and then kind of like gradually giving it the full breakdown. And I'm like, I felt myself sinking deeper. Like I was just like, oh, I'm really getting into it now. And yeah, and then just being able to watch all of it and then having this database, it was just sort of those three things clicking together, and that kind of set me off on it. And so 2015 was around the time where I started watching seasonal anime, and then end of 2016, I started my channel, which like I had wanted to start a YouTube channel since like the beginning of 2015, like around that period. But I kept sitting on the idea until like over a year later. But yeah, that's kind of the trajectory. And then I was my college's anime club president for 3 years. And yeah, kind of sailed up from there.
I have to say, you got into anime in a good era because, and I'm not a snob.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit of an elitist when it comes to anime, just a little
yeah,
bit.
I feel you. Yeah.
But no, I do feel that was a good time to get into anime. That's actually just right before when I left anime. For me, I think the late 2000s, early 2010 era was really the change when you started seeing a lot of anime hitting streaming services, mainstream, like you said, a Kiss Anime. Like there was just so much accessibility, and there was more and more anime coming out. Also, the quality and the style of anime that was coming out was making it more of a broader appeal. I feel obviously there was Sword
Yes.
Art Online, there was Kill la Kill, there were all of these great shows that were still very unique. Tokyo Ghoul, Attack on Titan, and when I was out, and well, I should say away from anime. And when I came back in, it was like a completely different field. When I was in college, there was no anime club. And I went back to college recently, and there is a huge anime society. And it's incredible to know that people are so into it. And even though I do claim to be an elitist, I have no problem with someone getting into anime with more recent shows in this different climate, because I think anime is better today than ever before just because of accessibility. It was very hard to read manga and watch anime back in the day. It wasn't unusual for many people to have to skip part 2 of 3 because they couldn't find it on YouTube for this episode, or the subtitles were just really, really bad. And I really appreciate the fact that we've gone in a direction where you can get so deep into it and everything is made available to you. And just hearing about how you came into it 2014, and less than 10 years later, you're already such a strong, pivotal voice in the scene. It just goes to show like anime is in such a great place, and there are a lot of great people coming into it. I'm very grateful to even like be speaking with you about this stuff today. That kind of leads me into my next question for you. What were some of the great animes when you first got into it? What really resonated with you? What stuck with you? What did you maybe think was a little better than it was that you look back on and think, oh, okay, I enjoyed it for the time?
That's interesting. So like around that 2014 period, well, I would say before, it's interesting. So before that breakthrough of like 2014 and like kind of this slipping into it, before that, my favorite anime stuff, like my claimed favorite anime was Black Butler, actually, dead ass. And
Really? Wow.
it was actually my first anime that I watched subbed, like Black Butler 2, because it was a situation where the second season hadn't been dubbed yet, and so I really wanted to watch the second season. So that was what pushed me to watch an anime with subtitles. And I was really big into Oron, and I still am. I rewatched it recently, and it's still fantastic. But there, it was like handfuls of stuff that I happened to see on Netflix or something. Like again, I didn't have Kiss, so it was whatever was on Netflix or what I could find on YouTube or whatever. Because like again, Crunchyroll wasn't as prominent of a site because they like their whole like they didn't have this vast library yet. Because like kind of their thing, I think I don't think I deadass even heard of them. But like they were just starting to do with like Naruto Shippuden and starting to air that and stuff. And I actually haven't seen, like I did not get into Big Three at all until this past year or two. I've been I watched Bleach last year for the first time, and then this year I've been watching 2 episodes of Naruto every day for the past year. Although I'm like 50 episodes behind on it right now, so hold on. But it's doing well, and I'm liking it. And so like yeah, there was a sort of like limited in whatever I had access to. And then that 14 period, it was because, what really started it was before. So I work at a camp. I've worked at a summer camp for about 10 years now. I just got back from it for my 10th. I worked there for 10 years. But one of the summers I was there, one of my I was a manager at one of the departments, and there was a co-manager, and that co-manager is who introduced me to Kiss Anime, and I had no idea it was illegal at the time, right? But like, it was around that time. But then right before the summer, I saw Hunter x Hunter on Netflix, and I was like, okay, I keep seeing this. I keep seeing this poster. What is it? And I had no idea, like, what is the show? And so I just started it on that kind of whim, and loved it. Totally absorbed, enthralled with it, absorbed, loved it. That was really a formative one for me. And I kind of finished it like after the summer into the fall and stuff, when like Netflix didn't have the episodes up like past 100, I think, because I think it was still airing at the time actually. And so that's how I just was like, all right, I'll just use Kiss. And then from there, I'm like, okay, what do I need to see? Okay, I have to see Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like, I haven't seen that yet. And so I was actually worried. I actually made a whole fucking deal of it because I was worried that I was going to get confused by it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch it dubbed. I still liked it a lot. I actually am not as much of like a snob when it comes to like dubs and subs and stuff, although I get people don't like the dub. But I was also like, I'm just going to watch this in one day. So it was a Saturday, like 8 a.m., started watching it, and I finished it at like 11 p.m. that night. It was just one straight day. And then I watched End of Evangelion the next day. So that was like a huge formative thing for me. And I think after that is like Gurren Lagann, which was on Netflix, Full Metal Alchemist, which I think was on Netflix. I think both of them were at the time, surprisingly. And then like around that time, it was like I started following Snob and stuff, and I started doing seasonals and stuff, and that was winter 2015. So I remember it was like Death Parade, which I wasn't as into, unfortunately. Yuri Kuma Arashi, which I was very much into. Loved that show, and some other ones that I kind of just forgot. There's a lot of you look back at like your list, like a completed list of like the seasonals, and you're like, oh, there's so many anime from 2015 and 2016 and 2017 that like are just not worth it. It's just like I don't really, whatever, it was just sort of like of the time, like just kind of flavor of the week stuff. Although I do remember especially liking Gonna Be the Twin Tails for some reason. Like that was the season before it, and I just kind of happened to see like the poster, and I just like, there's something about it that was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. But like around that time, it was about like that winter, I think it was around the time I was like, all right, I'm going to watch LGH, which is now my second favorite anime, and it was really kind of bumped me as like an anime elitist, as that show tends to do, which is ironic because the show is actually very modest. Like the show like is actually really like grounded and not trying to be boastful at all. It's not as grand. It's grandiose, but it's realistically grandiose. It's not like pompous the way its fans are, in my opinion. But yeah, it's just from there, it was like Mobile Suit Gundam, Rosa Versailles, Kaiji Berserk. It was just like, oh my God, banger after banger. You're spoiling yourself, man. Like, oh my gosh. I'm looking back on it. I had this idea of making this video. Do you remember that YouTube trend a few years ago of Draw My Life?
No.
It was a trend where like YouTubers draw on a whiteboard, just kind of doodle on a whiteboard and describing what their life is like in real life, like before starting YouTube, or like kind of separate from YouTube, so people get a better sense of who they are.
Okay.
So it was very viral kind of trend at the time. A lot of popular creators did it. But I was thinking of doing something similar like that, but for my anime life, and just like charting the collection of shows that I like it, like the way I was rattling them off to you just now.
Yeah.
Just doing that from like all the way through like stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kind of charting the whole thing. I thought that'd be an interesting video. I haven't made it yet. I thought about it, and I'm like, well, I'm still in the middle of like really interesting like watch period, because right now I've had this phase of like watching all of Naruto alongside a bunch of really formative shonen series. So like this year I've been watching, I just finished Rurouni Kenshin last night. I watched Hikaru no Go, Slam Dunk.
Wow.
I've watched the original Hunter x Hunter 99, stuff like that, you know, and so I just feel like I'm just still in the middle of it actually. So I'm holding off until like I see about like 1,000 anime, and it could be like my journey of watching 1,000 anime or something like that. I don't know.
Wow.
Figuring it out.
Wow, that's incredible. That's a lot to decompress.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit jealous. Actually, I'm very jealous of you because your experience is you're hitting one Hall of Fame anime after another, and
I know.
It's amazing. Like I think
I'm a bit of a clout chaser. I've formed a little bit of a clout that is like, what's kind of like the anime like you kind of need to see this show type of thing. Like I don't really go out of my way and be like, only I'm interested in that show. No, it's usually like, and it's a little like it's ingrained a little. It's not like on purpose, but like in hindsight, I'm like, wow, I just find all the clout ones. You know, that all like the elitists and like you see like the recommended charts, like you do those collages of like, here's a bunch of anime you need to watch, and I very I don't know what to like pretend, not pretentious, but like I very pridefully go like, I've seen that one, you know, or just like, you know, those collages where people like, I'm an anime elitist, like whole thing, and
Okay,
it's like,
yeah.
yep, I've seen all of those. You know, like there's something like that.
I kind of have a like the wall over on the other side looks like that a little bit, but let's not look at the wall.
That's fine. It's fun.
I can tell you really love anime, and the fact that you've gotten so deep and you've swam so far in this ocean is incredible. But I do want to I want to segment some of the stuff that you just mentioned and really get deep into it. And I want to start with shonen.
Yeah.
I love shonen. Many people love shonen, but I have friends that mean the world to me today that we met 15, 20 years ago and we bonded over shonen. And that's something that I watched Power Rangers. I watched all of those cool Nickelodeon shows. I watched everything on YTV, but there was something about Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and Bleach and Ice Shield 21 and Hunter and all of these great shonen, and for some reason they had a vice grip on me. And the fact that you're knocking them out of the park right now is really cool.
I actually forgot about Ice Shield 21. That's another one I watched this year.
Ice Shield is great.
It was pretty good. Good.
Yeah.
I would say that like coming off of Slam Dunk, it was not as good.
Oh yeah.
Like it was like, man, this was probably a bad idea because it's like steak versus like it was like 5-star restaurant, 3-star restaurant. It was like, this is good. It's just
stars
not
a little
Slam
generous.
Dunk.
3 stars a little
Yeah.
generous.
That's true. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I give it. Yeah, I don't know.
I like Ice Shield just because it was during an era where there was a lot of unique Shonen Jump manga coming out. And
there's a lot of weird stuff, right?
Very strange. But like the thing is, not all of it aged well. Not many of it aged well at all. But it still came from an era where it was like there wasn't as much of a cookie cutter standard that mangaka had to follow. So even though you knew that this series wasn't going to be the next One Piece or Naruto, you still put it out. And maybe you would get a hit, like with Toriko, for example. I don't think anyone thought Toriko would have been as big as it was, but you had a lot
Gintama. Gintama was able to thrive in that situation.
Perfect example, exactly. Gintama was one of those shows where I remember getting into it and I'm like, oh yeah, this is funny. But I stuck with it and I'm like, this is genius. And you don't see those risks being taken by magazines anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's tough. It's because I think they didn't have to worry about sales at the time because that's just how well One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach were doing. I imagine that's speculative on my part. I haven't looked as deep into it as some other people have, but like I imagine there was more room for experimentation for sure, and like less axing. Although maybe there was axing back then, and it's just harder to remember those things. It's like no, actually there was a lot that got axed in that period of time, and we just obviously never remember it because they were so quick and everything. and probably a lot less information on them now because,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, so I do agree with you when you say that like authors definitely had more of an opportunity to express themselves. I don't know how I feel about the current state of Shonen Jump. I like some of the series, but I don't think any of them are very unique. I feel like they're just checking off boxes on a list in order to be successful. And it's working. Like there are a lot of great series, but I don't feel a connection to them the same way I did with all of those shonens that brought me together with my friends. I don't know if you're watching any of like the recent or reading any of the recent shonen releases, but how do you feel about the current state of shonen type series compared to the things that are older that you're only watching now, like Naruto, Bleach, and so on?
Well, the reason I'm watching stuff like Naruto, Bleach, and so on is because they're done. I kind of want to. I'm sick of being strung along for years on a story. I don't think I don't think it's very healthy. I don't think it's something that I don't know. I don't really like it so much. You know how like as much as we liked Naruto or Bleach, there was a developing cynicism around them. The longer they went on, right? Like people are starting to get kind of like fed up, or like when is this going to happen, or kind of waiting for this is so long, or whatever. They were getting kind of impatient, or it was going in directions that they were not theorizing about for years, right? They were think, you can think of how long for like in Bleach, like how long it took some of the captains to find out what their Bankai is. Can you imagine like how much theorizing must have happened back in that day, right? Of like what it could be or whatever, and then the outcome ends up being disappointing, perhaps compared to what was fantasized about. Like I think there's a big problem with it's problematic, I should say, with experiencing a story as it's coming out. Because I just think when you get caught up, there's just so much theorizing and fan community stuff. And there's fun things about it for sure. But I don't know I think that the results are kind of like wane. I think it creates a strain that if you watch it in hindsight, if you watch Bleach or Naruto all the way through, it's nice. It's like, this is nice. I enjoy it, right? So I'm not caught up. I have a vague familiarity with what's going on with Hero Academia, at least because I follow people that are constantly talking about it as it's coming out. So like I'm just experiencing it through osmosis. Same with One Piece. And One Piece is interesting because it's actually had kind of like a wane and then a back up moment because it got so long that a lot of people who are frustrated with it dropped it. And now the only people that talk about it are the people that are sticking with it that love it. So now it's all positive reception for the most part, but it also helps that it seems to be a really interesting, pivotal part of the story. At least, again, what I've experienced through osmosis. I would say that in terms of the originality of some of these, I have seen the first 3 seasons of Hero Academia before I was like, I can't get strung along like this. Like obviously it came out in like 2016 around that time where I was like, I gotta watch everything, type of sort of thing. But like I haven't seen any of Jujutsu Kaisen because I want it to be done. I haven't seen any Demon Slayer because I just want it to be done first. Or if it even gets fully adapted. It's actually an interesting situation with that one because it ended pretty quickly. And so like, but it became such this huge moneymaker. So what's going to happen to it? Are they going to continue adapting it, and then when they're done adapting it, they're just going to stop? Are they going to stop? Or the manga's done, they made all their money. Do they really have to make a 3rd season after the 2nd one? The thing with Haikyuu, right? The Haikyuu manga's done. There's no confirmation of a season 5 yet. Is it going to finish? Does it have to? It's kind of an obligation, right? Fans kind of have this assumed obligation but no, there's plenty of, like Rurouni Kenshin didn't get anything else. It didn't finish adapting. Slam Dunk hasn't finished adapting, which it will, hopefully, this new movie and stuff. It happens, and so like fans are actually going to get like, oh shit, Haikyuu's not going to get full edit. Like there's a possibility of that, or think of like Promised Neverland. Like nobody had any anticipation that the 2nd season, the author would just want to like do something different, and it turned out to be shit, and like nobody liked it. There's no anticipation of that. If you're cutting edge like that, there's no way to tell. That stuff could happen all the time. So it's like it's so much easier for me. It's like it's also it's like why would I want to watch like Jujutsu Kaisen when I haven't seen Rurouni Kenshin yet, right? So like I'm gonna go watch that, even though it's not like it wasn't fully done, but at least I know that, and there's no I'm at peace with that, right? I think iShield 21 had the same situation. It didn't adapt the whole thing, but I knew about that going into it, and there's an awareness of that, and that's fine. But yeah, I just don't. That's why I'm not like as I can't report on the originality. Although when you were speaking on how like kind of checking off boxes and being kind of formulaic, I assume you're talking about Black Clover, which yes, fair. Although I think it's like there's other series that are similarly cookie cutter and formulaic, but are nonetheless like kind of fun. Like Black Clover is kind of fun if it's not trying to do something radical or dramatically different or trying to make itself more complicated than it is. I don't like to subscribe to the turn your brain off mentality, but it's just really like I like Black Clover for being very classic, and it's just like the two rivals, and then the thing, and then it just has these beats that are just like kind of familiar like that, but it's not the same because you're not in high school anymore. I just wonder if the kids who are in high school now, if they're talking about Black Clover or Hero Academia the same way we were talking about Bleach and Naruto back then, it's possible. Although I will say I suspect the reason that it's not as it's a little more formulaic now, and they're not doing as many experiments or risks, is because the magazine kind of needs hits. A lot of their hits ended and are ending. Like Hero Academia might be ending in the next couple years, and JJK is also kind of on its way out, perhaps. And like that's crazy. And so like, and Jump has been axing a lot of stuff, and some of it is kind of different or whatever. I would say it's not a complete wash if Chainsaw Man exists. Like I think that's incredibly formative and hopefully inspires a lot of upcoming manga. And I hope part 2 is really exciting. I just think it was so genius to take the same route as JoJo's, where it's a uniform story, and now we can anticipate the anime to be a full adaptation of something, and it's not just like it just kind of ends where it does.
Yeah,
just so genius, and I'm so excited for that, especially on a production standpoint, with hearing about the director, who's the same director as Black Clover, who was very like into it was a long running show, but he made sure that like the animators were having a good time. They were able to express themselves. There's whole episodes that are very distinct and in this unique style or whatever. And it was kind of a more engaging, interesting production in that way. So it's just really promising, and it's promising with like the way he's reaching out to new animators, and he's like, we're gonna train them, because there's this big problem with animators like only lasting an average of 3 years. Like there's a revolving door right now, and there's not a lot of sustainability in this, which is a huge problem for anime right now. We're kind of going through this glut period. I think Chainsaw Man hopefully is a moment for it to be a watershed moment, not just for manga, but for anime as well. For its production, for its adaptation and production to be something that's kind of a standout moment, and something that kind of hopefully changes the paradigm shift to go more quality over quantity. That's just like my fantasize, like kind of pie in the sky hopes. I think like there might not be a whole lot to substantiate based on. I just have a good feeling with Chainsaw Man that not only is it going to have this influence, but it's also going to be a massive hit. And I think the massive hit means that there's influence there, and they're like, oh, that worked. Maybe we should try to replicate that. That's something I want to see replicated potentially, if that's the direction it goes. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time for sure, but it is certainly one to be looking at in terms of like a waning and like with some concern. I could understand that.
Yeah, I think with Chainsaw Man, it's doing something that's very unique and something that shonen in general needs. All of the shonen magazines really need to look at what Chainsaw Man is, and you pointed out all of the great things about it. It's a dark series, but it's not too dark. It's very unique in the way that it tells a story, but we've seen it done before with other shonen, and I absolutely do believe, especially with the fanfare that it's been receiving on Twitter with Anitubers, that it will change things. I haven't felt so excited for a series in a really long time. Just reading Chainsaw Man, it reminded me of the excitement I felt when I first picked up Tenjo Tenge when I was 15 years old. I remember all of those really cool series that were just a little bit more than what I was reading in other shonens. They were a little bit darker, they were a little bit more real, even if they were doing ridiculous things. But it also influenced the scene afterwards. I think that like the same way Tokyo Ghoul kind of made things very tragic and gothic like, Chainsaw Man will do that. It has a really strong element of surprise with its storytelling as well. It's not just, anything can happen, it's anything will happen. When you're reading this story, you're not just like, will they, won't they, or is he going to fight the rival, is this going to happen? Things are going to happen, and they're happening at a breakneck pace. So I'm really looking forward to what Jump does. I'm hoping they take more chances with series going forward, but I also hope mangaka look at what was happening with Chainsaw Man and Fire Force, and even like unique series like Spy Family and Sakamoto Days. All of these like really cool series that you see familiarity with what they're doing, but it's very fresh. And it's still a little too soon to say if they're really going to change all the manga and anime that we're going to get throughout the next decade, but it is an exciting time, and it reminds me so much of when I was younger.
Definitely. What's nice about Chainsaw Man that's sort of different from the grimdark stuff, because you could say that in Tokyo Ghoul, as well as like that era in the early 2010s, if we're strictly talking anime, if we're talking like Attack on Titan, was the major proponent of that, of more like incredible twists and like kind of grimdark stuff. But like there's something different with Chainsaw Man where it's very grim, it's dark in that way, but it's also really funny. It's also like really crass, and like it has this energy to it that is really addictive and adrenaline pumping. It's not like it's not, you can't really say Attack on Titan has its quirky moments, or Tokyo Ghoul has its quirky moments, but it's not the main characters. Like the main characters, like one of his motivations is like he just wants to touch boobs. Like that's just so like kind of wacky and like. But it's viscerally interesting, and it's contrasted with this like it's a grimdark narrative that we've kind of seen before, of like the tragic main character goes through this like horrible whatever. But the direction of it is interesting. I remember like the first chapter of it coming out, and people were like, "Ooh," and we're like, "Please!" But we're also in that period of like, "Please don't get axed. Please don't get axed." Like it's like it's hard to get your hopes up for some of these series, because you don't know if they're going to let them die or not. And you don't want to get invested in that way. But then if you don't get invested in it, and you're like, if you don't do that, it will get axed. So you kind of have to put your faith in it, and you just have to actually come forward and buy the initial volume and stuff, and show up for it and put that faith in it. It's like, I want this to continue. That it'll inevitably get its success, hopefully. So that's very fortunate with Chainsaw Man, and I'm grateful that it's gotten the following and the popularity that it has before the animes even come out. I can't even do you remember like how little people talked about JJK? Like it just didn't seem like on anybody's radar.
Yeah.
And the minute this anime came out, it couldn't leave anybody's mouth. Yeah. Like it was all over. And I was like, oh my God. Like that was the first, like I get like the anime does something like kind of hits different, and there's a heightened awareness when the anime comes out. Like I knew about that, but I never experienced it the same way as like when the way JJK happened. I was like, oh my God, now everyone's fucking Jesus Christ. It was just crazy. So to think of like how many people are aware and are talking about Chainsaw Man before the animes even come out, compared to something like Demon Slayer or JJK, I can't imagine what it's gonna be like, dude. Unless they botch it, but like we'll see. I don't think we'll see. I think even if it's like humdrum of an adaptation and it just doesn't turn out the same way as JJK, it's still a great story. I feel it'll still be really cool to see it in an animated form. I'm still optimistic about it. But oh God, if it pops on top of being like a good story, like
oh my God,
no, oh no.
That would be so lit. I hope so. And see, that's the thing. Also, like, I want to build off of something you just said. Maybe this is just me. Maybe this is me being too much of a critic. But a lot of the Jump series coming out, the art's not very good. Like I can see why a lot of people weren't talking about Chainsaw Man, because with Chainsaw Man, the character design is pretty interesting. Like even if it's not the best art you've ever seen, there are still moments where it's like it's so visually stunning. You really want to see what's going to happen next, and even like the way the panels are drawn, it's so unique. Like sometimes I'll go back on like an old like I've shown in Jump here, and I remember when I first got it, it was like chapter like 13 or something, and I can't read Japanese, but I remember just looking at the pages, and I'm like, this is very unique art. It's not the best art, but it's a unique way of drawing. And
Yeah.
when I look at sorry to say Chainsaw Man, not JJK. Chainsaw Man had that
Right.
very unique way of like art. JJK's art isn't good. I thought the manga's art was really bad. The anime does a very good service in improving on that and making it look visually stunning. But then that's also the case with Promised Neverland. That's also the case with My Hero Academia at times. Like My Hero Academia's art
At the
looks better
time.
now. Yeah, yeah.
Well, but it's funny, right? Like Hori improves as an artist, and then as the anime kind of rests on its laurels and it's just kind of doing its thing, it's not trying to like impress in the same way. Now the roles are reversed in a very striking way with
Yeah.
Hero Academia. I've never really seen anything like how people have really dropped off of the anime in the same way.
Mhm.
I mean, sure, I've seen it with One Piece, I guess, but again, it has this like really interesting hue where like, oh my god, the anime is great, and it kind of enters this period where it's resting on its laurels, and it looks okay, it's fine, it's serviceable.
Yeah.
And then Wano, it's like, oh Jesus, this is a TV anime, like it's insane.
I think Wano saved One Piece, if you ask me.
Yeah,
Because
it
if
kind of
Wano was a
has.
good arc, then I think people would be talking about how One Piece completely fell off. Because I'll be honest, since the time jump, I haven't been interested in One Piece. Like
Very fair.
I've tried really hard because I literally grew up with One Piece. I have a One Piece inspired tattoo. I absolutely
Yeah.
love One Piece, but I'm not going to pretend I love something that could be better than it is, and it isn't that great.
Yeah.
Like I love Demon Slayer as well.
Yeah, there's long periods. I can again through osmosis. I talk like about One Piece as if I've seen it, but I haven't. But like, Dressrosa was this huge rock. Like a lot of people, it was like a slog to get through, especially if you were watching it week to week. I've heard that Dressrosa is really not that bad if you watch it like all the way like consecutively. It's actually kind of fine because the story is so immediate, one after the like within the same day, that like, but it's just long. But it's so immediate. It's like Chimera Ant arc. I can't imagine what it was like to like watch that week to week compared to like binging it or something.
It wasn't great. It wasn't
Right?
great. Yeah.
It was kind of hard to do, right? But now we watched it in hindsight. Oh shit. So I've heard from people that have been watching it in hindsight and they haven't had problems with Dressrosa, but I remember that being a massive complaint and people were really struggling with watching the anime and reading the manga. And then Whole Cake was sort of like, oh, here we go again. What is this one? But then towards the end, it seems like people really like Whole Cake. But towards the end, especially with like introducing the major antagonist of that arc, who seems like really, really cool and stuff.
Yeah.
And after that, straight into Wano, and it's like, oh, okay, now this feels like it's going somewhere, and the dominoes are starting to fall in ways that we've been wanting them to fall for decades, right? And finding little pieces out and elaborating on more stuff, and introducing really cool characters like Odin and Yamato. But it seems like that. And where I was going like with My Hero Academia, I had this idea, this kind of thought experiment. I wanted to make it into a video, but like, it requires me finishing the whole thing first. But like, what would it be like if My Hero Academia was released as an anime the same way Naruto was, where it was released arcs at a time, and then after an arc, it would do like a filler arc or something. How long would it take to adapt? Where would the anime and manga be relative to each other? And how would that kind of pace itself out? And how would that ultimately affect the show? It's incredibly speculative, but in terms of the pacing and adaptation process, maybe there's certain arcs that would be longer or shorter compared to like where they are. But it really is just like no excuse for like, I just don't understand hearing about some of the choices with the Hero Academia anime compared to the manga, and like the skimping out on some scenes and some panels, and the way it's sort of come together at especially this fifth season. But like it's just It is interesting, but it'll be much more interesting to see in hindsight with the whole thing. Like again, it's you know, one week chibis were complaining that like, oh, I think the anime's done for, guys, and then the next week he's like, actually, that was the best episode this season. And it's like, yeah, I guess that's what happens when you don't know you don't know what they have planned down the road. And you can like scrutinize that. I imagine that scrutinization was happening all the time with Naruto, but I don't notice that thing at all because like I'm looking forward to I only a couple episodes later I see like, oh, there's the episode where they pop off. But like, oh yeah, that was a great decision in the grand scheme of things. You can't see the grand scheme of things if it's developing as it's happening, I guess. Interesting ideas.
It is. What do you think about the impact that Demon Slayer has had? And do you think that it's going to possibly influence the way manga is structured and anime is adapted going forward? Like, when I was reading Demon Slayer, by the way, I think Demon Slayer's art is one of those things which, again, the manga's art's not good. And it was a favor what the studio did for Demon Slayer. But also, adapting their shortest arc into a movie that became a blockbuster, and it is a fantastic movie that has converted so many normies. Everyone loves it. I really do believe every manga going forward is going to try and do something similar. If you're gunning to have a big three, a huge shonen, why not have a 15 to 20 chapter arc that could be adapted into a movie that still flows with the story? I think we've moved past the need for filler type movies every single year, as with what we saw with Dragon Ball Z and with Pokemon. And I think with what Mugen Train did is going to create a new trend that people are going to try and chase after.
Amen. And I think it's really exciting in that way. Although it leaves me room for concern, like the way I mentioned how the way it's made so much money, not just for the movies and the anime, but like the manga was an insane seller. I don't know if the author itself, like they have time before this point. It's like maybe the author writes a sequel or like, and writes something else where returns to the world of manga or something, or they could just retire because they probably can. I'm
not drawing manga anymore. I have millions now.
Are you kidding? Yeah. Replicate the success? Like I don't have to, but like it's such a success, or it's a success now. Will it continue to be a success? It'll be interesting to see, because it was released in unique circumstances with the pandemic. We don't know how much that affected it or not. But also, like, I think there are some manga. I think that's an interesting point where it's like there are going to be more. I think that was already happening before Demon Slayer. Like, I'm not like into Hero Academia's manga, but like the Stain arc has got to be 15 chapters, right? Like some of these arcs are kind of short. Like I just seem like really abrupt in some of them, and so it's like, yeah, some of these could be movies. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the intention of like writing it, it would be interesting to see. But like, I feel like it's just a coincidence that they were able to just so happen to have a 26 episode thing, and then right after they were able to make this movie and stuff. Like that was a good stroke of genius and luck in terms of the series composition. But in terms of mangaka anticipating that and planning that, they don't even know if they're going to get axed the next week for these first couple for the first 30 or so chapters, right? They have no idea. And they actually don't know how much longer they can do, maybe their editors can tell them, no, you're fine, you can just whatever. But like, what if readership goes down or something like that, Like I feel like there's no way for them to tell, and it's a surprise to them when it becomes an anime. They're like, oh, I made it, holy shit. So for them to have that foresight and to be like, oh, this is going to be for the movie, like that's not really their decision, right? It's the executive or the editors or whoever. Like it's hard for them to plan in that way. But I do think in terms of movies adapting arcs, yeah, I hope that still happens. I think that I hope that's a trend that producers and these companies see as beneficial to them. Like, oh, you have they thought that as a detriment because they treat Gekijobans, which is the Japanese term for movie or just for anime movie, like they deliberately call like TV anime and movie anime like totally different things. They're totally different, at least in their terminology. That's why it's called Gekijoban Demon Slayer or Gekijoban Sword Art Online Progressive. I hope that show, like, I imagine initially the reason they didn't think that was the case, that could work, was that they didn't assume people would have seen the whole show. Like, they were worried about that, probably. Like, that was probably a valid concern. But at the same time, who is this movie made for? Like, who's going to see this movie? It's the fans of the series. So why not just like adhere to that, like the people who are fans of the series, and not try to like appeal to newcomers and stuff with these anime original movies? This, which is what I would imagine that the idea goes of why they decided to go with that, I think. Or the compilation films, right? But they're just like adapting, like there's kind of like repackaging the TV series into a digestible movie. Yeah, I hope it's a trend. You know, I think it'll be hard to tell, but my concern is more like, are they going to faithfully adapt this whole thing, or are they going to see it as a moneymaker and they're just going to kind of not fully adapt? They're going to do something else. They're going to start veering into anime so they can keep milking these movies. Is that going to happen? I don't know. You know, I think there's room for possibility. Or what if Ufotable just like, yeah, we only signed on to do the first piece, the first season, the movie, and the second season, and now we're going to do some more fate, and it moves on to another studio. You never know. It's all. So that's. I think that's why I'm more focused on like the past and why people are like, oh, you're so into older anime, and I'm like, well, it's only because the new stuff is so uncertain, and there's this like, I don't feel the need to watch a lot of isekai, because my big problem is like, what isekai is over? What's complete? Like I think Mushoku Tensei is complete, but only now is it getting an adaptation, and it's kind of a long one, so it's going to kind of be a while. And like when that's done, sure, I'll watch Mushoku Tensei. Fine. That seems like a very formative title, and it looks really, really good. So cool, I'll watch that. I'm not going to wait for more Konosuba. I'm not going to wait for more ReZero.
It's
like,
not worth it. No.
You know what I mean? It's just like you take forever, and you also get burned if they don't get another season. Like Land of the Lustrous. I hope that gets more.
Where
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
We need more.
Just busy with Beastars, which also is like, we'll see if we get a third season of that.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's a Netflix thing, and Netflix apparently it doesn't seem to have a pattern with like commissioning a new season. Like it only does like up to 2 seasons. Like, oh, it only performs this good. We don't need to make it third. And so we're fucked. You know what I mean? And it's like, why would I want to watch Beastars if I don't know if it's going to be a full adaptation?
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to get logged, and I'm going to have to read the manga. Which then if I read the manga, like, okay, Beastars is finished, but Kaiji isn't, right? Like, I'm caught up with Kaiji. I'm actually not caught up with Kaiji. I'm like 60, 70 chapters behind it, actually. I was trying to catch up recently. But, like, I love that series. Like, I love Kaiji, and I'm totally at peace with it not being adapted into any more anime. I'm at peace with that, but, like, you know, it still sucks. Yeah, so it's just, there's just so much of that, and it's like, all right, well, I haven't seen a bunch of these mecha anime that are complete, that are a full story because they're original. There's like 12 of them that are like fully original, standalone, pretty critically acclaimed, and I really want to watch. So I'll watch those instead. You know what I mean?
It's amazing what we're talking about, because if I heard this when I was 15, I'd be like, what parallel universe are you guys living in? These 20 manga that I absolutely love will never get an anime adaptation, but we're talking about things getting a third or fourth season. So many things are getting adapted, or it may take some time. We really are living in a land of excess luxury, and I love it. We're spoiled. We're spoiled, but I do think that it's a great time for anime, and fans really have a lot to consume and digest and really enjoy.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do say in my How to Anime video back in 2017, which like even now it's even more so the case, but there's really never been a better time to be a fan, because there's so much stuff that gets licensed and is brought over legally, and we can watch it the same day as Japan, and we're not relying on fan subs or anything like that. But all the fan stuff, what's great about it is that now that the companies are able to focus on the current titles and they've taken that load off the backs of fan subbers. A lot of them now are focusing on tokusatsu stuff that still isn't licensed, or a lot of older titles that haven't been touched at all, like the original Astro Boy from 1963 still doesn't have subs. Like, what?
Really? Seriously?
Yeah, it's 100. There's 104 episodes that are dubbed in English.
Yeah.
But like 4 are subbed total. Like 4 episodes out of 193 episodes.
Wow.
There's a whole latter half of Astro Boy, some of the episodes are directed by was like some of the first episodes that Osamu Dezaki ever directed. So it's like really early storyboards by like very formative directors.
Wow.
That aren't subbed. There's just so much that isn't subbed because all of them were busy. Like 8 groups subbing Naruto, right? Like this fan sub scene was ridiculous back then. And Crunchyroll lifted that burden off them, and it's raised the ground floor. Now all this work is able to get done, and it's not a better time to be it, because now we can be like, hey, watch Oshino no Joe. You couldn't say that in 2013 or 14 because it probably had it barely just got subbed. I don't even know if it finished. I think it got subs maybe like 2014 or so, or something like that. Or like very recently, all things considered, compared to when it came out, right? Or any of his other series, like Aim to the Ace actually just got finished getting subs last year or the year before. Like the OVAs and stuff, we were waiting forever to get that subbed. I watched the last season of that raw. Like I've seen some anime without any subtitles. Like I watched this 40 episode show, Samurai Giants, that like Miyazaki had like done some animation for and had some Otsuka designs and stuff like that. And it was by the same author as Oshino Joe, but like it just wasn't that good, unfortunately. It's just like, maybe this is okay that this wasn't subbed. Unfortunately, it didn't. But yeah, it's like, yeah, but that's how stupid deep I am right now, actually. But like, yeah, it's just never been a good time, a better time. I agree.
I want to talk about AniTube.
Yeah, Anime YouTube.
Your AniTube Digest channel has opened up my eyes to so many creators, large and small, and some of them I have reached out to and brought onto my channel. And I think, as I mentioned earlier on, what you do, you really create an awesome community for everyone to network, and you're helping this community grow. This may be a little bit strokey, but stick with me. I think David Shore is one of the greatest writers of all time, and I think his contributions to television people will remember, and we still feel it today. I kind of feel that as you're a curator, you're along those lines. I really do appreciate what you do, and I think right now AniTube is in that sort of early 2000s HBO sort of era, where you're seeing people taking what was established previously from the bigger AniTubers that we all know of, and they're really adding their own touch to it. I do believe that in the next 5 years, I'm sure, as you may have seen in some of my videos, I want to see more AniTubers grow and become big. I know that's not everyone's goal, but I want that for people, because I know there are many people who want to be able to make this into a career, and you're definitely shining a light on some of these fantastic creators. What about AniTube do you love? What sort of future do you see for it? Where do you see yourself within AniTube as a curator? And how much bigger could it possibly get? Anime is growing so much, but AniTube isn't growing at the same pace. I don't know where it's going, but maybe you have a better insight.
Unfortunately, I don't too much, because a lot of that insight has to come from knowing YouTube as a platform, and I don't pretend to know much about YouTube and its goings on and the algorithm and what's popular and what is a hit. I think there's certain creators like Nextaku that are way more in tune and have practiced and have gotten other connections. Like I'm really proud. I really like to see how he's been doing, where he's grown into this more internet personality, and he's able to collab with some much bigger creators and get us more in the space. The same with the Anime Man. He had this recent video about Japan quiz show, and he's it's got fucking everybody. It's like huge stars. Like it actually really packed.
That was a
thing, you know?
surprise. That was a
That was just
huge
really
surprise.
awesome, right? And but it's not anime. And Nux is the same way. He's if you remember his stuff, he was a lot like Anime Uproar or like some of these other channels, which were very much just like talking about anime in a very general way and just kind of databasing you about like what makes Zoro such a great character and and kind of going over a bunch of shonen characters. And he had this Flex series that like really propelled him. But now it was around that time where he was or a little bit afterwards, where he was realizing that anime is not getting the numbers, it's not getting the views, it's not a lucrative area in the way that a vlog might be or a cult of personality might, general videos like they're just kind of memey and fun. It's just not the platform right now. I mean, I like what people are making. I like what I'm making, and I like what other people are making. And I'm hoping more so than my digest series, I'm hoping that my videos on my main channel are like what I really kind of hope pushing people and like inspiring people and educating people and stuff. And they just have a better relationship with anime as a whole. But like if they see that and want to make something themselves, I think that's really awesome. That was kind of the big ending point of my Gurren Lagann video, which is all about inspiration and stuff like that. It's tough. I think I think you were I really envy your optimism about Anime YouTube, with it being so early 2000 and this kind of like we're all talking with each other and stuff. It's sort of the truth. There are definitely certain communities that talk with each other. There's still some channels that are very much an island, but there's also a lot of channels that are dead or just like not uploading the same way they used to. That are a lot more formative. We're in the formative in the way some of us might be now or something, but we don't see ourselves as that. And in terms of us getting big, it's like I don't know. Like that would be nice, but it doesn't seem as viable. I don't know. There's something with like Gigix managed to find it where he's still able to talk about anime, but he also has this like trash talk thing, which is very much not really about anime. Like you know that they all like and know about anime, but they don't really talk about it very much. I think wisely because they realize that like a lot of people get upset at them when they spread misinformation or kind of talk out their ass or whatever. And so they just talk about food and no one can get upset at them for that. And it's nice conversation. It's honestly kind of smart. And I really like some of the bigger stuff that they make and everything like that. Although they're not as, I think after the second year I haven't been watching them as much, but that's okay. It's like they're doing their thing and it's awesome. But yeah, it's like a lot of them aren't making anime content. They just aren't. And if they are, they have to make on something that's current, that's popular, that's like a perennial class. Like if you make a Berserk video, you'll get views. If you make I don't even know. It's I'm not like in tune. I was like, oh, that'll get views. I have no idea. I'm not very good at that. I have things that I think will get a lot of views, and I get very sorely disappointed when they don't. I'm not like in tune in the same way. There's some channels that are growing pretty well, like Hazel. She's been doing great, and she's been uploading pretty regularly, and all of her videos have been really good. And she's still talking kind of more in the obscure way, and she's digging into this stuff that no one's heard of, which is excellent. That's kind of the ideal content, in my opinion, even though it's not the ideal content for YouTube. If no one knows about this, like, how do you, what? Like, YouTube's like, what am I supposed to do with this? Which is understandable because they have this, it's a huge saturated thing. It's not like the formative days of YouTube, nor is it like, also, I think Anime YouTube just had way more respect a few years ago. And there's certain players that, I could be very overly critical of, but like at the end of the day, I respect them for doing what they do. But you had formerly Digibro, but now Trixie Beatrice the Golden Witch, who is still active. I'm not going to say that they're a dead channel. Although you could always make an argument, like, oh, their views or whatever. You can criticize the direction of her channel all you want, but it was her as well as Mother's Basement that were really getting a lot of views for a bunch of stuff, and it didn't really matter what they uploaded. but now their stuff is really stagnated in the same way, and it doesn't get the same amount of traction because the algorithms changed. It changes all the time, and that's just what happens. Some people who are very savvy to the algorithm at one point aren't anymore, or they have to adapt or whatever. But I think with some of the stuff that they made, I think made a very negative impression on people. And there's, at least on Twitter, it seems to me that there's this kind of consensus that anime YouTube sucks, and that there are a lot of these, trying to misinform you, or they're bought, or whatever, and there's no changing that perception to me. That doesn't seem, there's no changing these people's minds. It feels like a group consensus. Reddit, there's a whole thing where part of the reason Anime YouTube was able to get the size that it did back then, not that I was fully there at the time, because I wasn't making videos or anything, but you could get a really popular video by posting it on r/anime on Reddit, and you'd get a lot of traction that way. I'm pretty sure that's how my Berserk video got so big, was because it was shared very widely on various Berserk Reddits that I never even knew about, and people would just share them there. But r/anime, around the time 2016, 2017, they cut off anime YouTube videos altogether, pretty much. You couldn't post your own videos, and there was just something about it where they just weren't welcome on that platform. And I think they realized that now, and they've kind of walked that back, but the damage is done. You really can't get a traction that way. And it's just this. It's just the YouTube's just not interested in what we have to make. So, in terms of the growth and success of the platform, for those people who want to make it their job or something, I'm sorry, I don't see it, unless it's unless you're doing something that's not really explicitly anime, or it's anime adjacent. There's still some people that find success with reaction content or review content that are just a lot more baseline and stuff, but that still pops, that still does decent for them, and that's fine. They can do that. But in terms of doing different stuff or essay type content, I don't see it. And I don't want to put my stock in it, which is why I'm really grateful that isn't my job. And so I'm just I'm okay with digest pulling just 1,000 views every video. It's not very, it's big enough that Trash Taste knows who I am, which is awesome. They shouted me out at the end of their YouTuber video, which is crazy, and I don't take that for granted. But
I'm gonna give a shout out to my boy Shaybs. Not gonna
I
lie,
love Shaybs. Love Shaybs.
not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm just looking forward to being on his digest in the good section.
AniTube Digest,
So
which is a series where Shaybs, this AniTuber, goes through basically some of his favorite YouTube videos to do with in the anime YouTube sphere,
and some of his least favorite,
and some of his least favorites as well. And this is the one series I've pretty much think every anime YouTuber watches, even if they don't want to admit it.
I told him, I'm everyone watches it, even if they don't.
Because everyone doesn't want to admit it. Every AniTuber secretly wants to be on the good part. It's did I make it onto the good one this week?
I see the numbers, and I'm just my mom's wow, 10,000, 16,000, that's a lot of subscribers. I'm yeah, I guess in the real world or something, or you could say that, but it's not the same. I don't know.
That's a lot to unpack.
Sorry to be a bit of a bummer.
No, you've been at this a lot longer than me, and your sentiments have been echoed by so many other creators. How do you grow nowadays when there's this stigma against anime creators? Even on Discords, I promote a lot of my stuff on Discord because I like the conversation there, but there is so much backlash. I've been in Discords where people completely hate some of the bigger AniTubers because of the direction that they go in, and they refuse to even talk about them in certain spaces because they feel that they're everything that's wrong with modern day anime and all of these ridiculous things. Sometimes their sentiments come from a place of fact, and it's not just opinion, but a lot of the times it seems like in order to be successful, you have to sell out. You have to create very broad content. And let's face it, a majority of the anime fans today, or maybe not a majority, but a very large portion of them, they don't need to get super analytical. They don't even really know about the directors and the producers behind series. They just want to get a good reaction.
I was seeing Kanapa talk about he's deleted the tweet. He had this thread going on where he was talking. he proposed the idea of like remastering some anime, and he was referring to anime from like 2015, so you could just redo the compositing, like all the anime that's done on the computer, you just make the compositing more up to date and modern and stuff, so you could repackage and resell them. And he's like, I'm not sure if that would work, but everyone was kind of assuming he was talking about older anime, like from 2005 and before, like 4:3 aspect ratio and even cell animation. Yeah. And he was like, and he was dead ass, like, I didn't read the full thing. Like, there was some replies that he was getting that he was replying to that was like, yeah, I don't watch old anime either. Like, I don't watch anime from before 2000 or like, but like in the 90s, like, yeah, I don't.
Which is crazy.
Either. You know, and that's just his taste, right? And like, he has like the utmost respect for anime in general, but like he is just like, yeah, I don't see a lot of actual fans like by the numbers, like the numbers that Crunchyroll is getting and the numbers that like some of these like things on like TikTok or whatever, like anime is mainstream, but only mainstream to a point. It's not like everybody is going to be as deep as we are right now.
Yeah.
Like I am like iceberg black area deep, right? Like it's kind of insane, but like, you know, I like that it's normalized. I wouldn't say it's so far as, it's hard for me to say it's mainstream because I keep seeing the cynicism is just like, okay, then why isn't anyone talking about Sunny Boy? Why has it the past couple of seasons in this 2021 season, and maybe even the year before, why has it seemed that like nobody talks about the seasonal anime?
Yeah. Like
it just seems like that everyone gets that rush of like, oh, all these are coming out, but not even that anymore. Not even that anymore, because there's just too many of them. Like that, like honestly, it just feels like so many people, they just kind of given up on it. And now they're just anime fans, right? And I'm not saying I'm not doing that. Like, I agree. Like, I'm not doing that either. But it was just like, wow, where are we right now? You know, and just finding our bearings. I would say that it's less mainstream as it is normalized. You're not being stigmatized for being an anime fan. In fact, you're kind of the weird one if you don't like anime, which is excellent. Thank God. Because like, you had no idea I had no idea of the stigma that they had to overcome back in the 90s. Like I was, I talked with my boss who has worked in the industry for 23 years, since the 90s. And he was there and is aware. He told me this anecdote of how they had to fight to like get people to watch Grave of the Fireflies because people were worried of sympathizing with the Japanese. Like, Jesus Christ. You couldn't even tell people it was made in Japan. You couldn't even tell them that. You had to hide it. You had to are you kidding me? Like that is the kind of thing they had to deal with, right? And the fact that it's at the point it is now, thank God. That's awesome. I think it's normalized, but it's just tough for me. I think it's easy for me to get a little cynical because I've been an elitist. I try to be not as like pessimistic and cynical as say the anime snob or some other people, but like it's hard not to see it where it's like, man, like, there's too much coming out, and just the way the fandom's going and stuff like that, it's frustrating. But it's just, for me, it's like I just like making my stuff and see making what I want to see out there, and like hope some people like it. And even if it's the same 15 people, and I never really get like mainstream. Actually, I'd be okay with not getting mainstream success because that comes with a lot more scrutiny. And there's a bunch of randos that you'll never meet in your life that you never even see their post. They'll just be talking shit about you, right? I can never imagine like the amount of like you just have to ignore it. Like the fact that people like Mother's Basement can't even read their comment section anymore. Like they read in the first 24 hours maybe, but like they don't afterwards because they can't possibly deal with all of that scrutiny and all that bullshit. And like, people falsifying what you say in a video and stuff. Like there was a situation like a few weeks or like a month ago where somebody took a clip out of context from one of Jeff's Ava videos, like his more recent one where he's talking about the 3 different endings for Ava. And they take it out of context and show like to assume that he doesn't understand Ava. It's like the cliche thing. He's like, actually, here's the context. Here's what I said, the whole thing. And everyone was like, oh shit. Because they just kind of assumed that was what he was talking. Like they just kind of assumed the out of context clip was real because, yeah, of course Jeff would say something stupid like that. He had this basement order for JoJo's. Like, it sucks that it's the cancel thing where I hate to be like, of course I'm complaining about cancel culture, Jesus Christ. No, but like, it's the thing where you make one mistake in a video, and no one's going to fucking like any of your other videos. And it's like, oh, who cares what Jeff has to say? He had this shitty basement order he was recommending. What the fuck does that have to do with this fucking point? Jesus Christ. I just hate the internet in that way, where it's like it never forgets it in a negative way. It's like they're never gonna let you live certain things down, I guess.
That's the thing. Like, you're absolutely right. For some reason, the internet, they will twist and turn something to fit the agenda that they want. Like, I'm gonna refer back to some of the biggest AniTubers. I'm going to talk about Trash Taste. I love Trash Taste. And the reason why I love Trash Taste is people will look a couple years from now and look back and see that Trash Taste is a very innovative podcast. You have 3 of the biggest creators in a space come together to create one of the bigger podcasts on the entire platform. And there's so many moving parts to Trash Taste. Like, I took notes before I started this channel about Trash Taste in an episode. There are so many elements to it that's really incredible, and just the fact that they keep on growing and growing, and their content, while it's very normie and widespread and less anime like, it's still something that is based and rooted in anime. But Giguk will never live down his Sword Art Online takes. He will never ever live that down. Joey has been very vocal about the fact that him being the anime man is going to be difficult for him to actually shed making only anime content, which is why he's making more content on his second channel.
He actually doesn't. It's very obvious he doesn't watch much anime these days. Like, it's very obvious, and he just makes it up. He's like, yes, here I am, the manga man.
Say you're not an anime fan anymore without saying you're not an anime fan anymore.
Kind of, yeah. But that's also, the thing is that he's doing what he wants to do. And he's also just being very transparent as a creator. And he's been doing this for a very long time, longer than me. So, not that I've been doing it I've been doing it for like about 5 years, but he's been doing it for 8. So,
still a sizable amount of time. But like, even that, it's like, at what point do you realize that this glass ceiling is going to stop you, and like you need to move past it? I want anime to be that. I really want AniTubers to be big. I'm not saying everyone can get to 1 million. I'm not even saying everyone can get to 250,000. But there is validation in seeing your numbers go up. There is validation in knowing that my content will be seen by more people, because that number of subscribers will at least give the illusion that this is quality content, which isn't always the case, but unfortunately that's how it is. There are so many great videos out there that will be lost to time just because they don't have that number attached to it, and that's unfortunate. But I also do think that AniTubers really do need to look at the reality of things. There are some of them who want to make this, even if it's not a permanent career, they want to make something really great out of it. I look at Your True Captain. I really look up to his work. Like, he's an incredible creator, and he puts in so much time and work, and he's grown exponentially in the last 6 months alone. And I look at what he's doing, and obviously, like, I don't believe in luck, but I believe preparation meets opportunity. He's definitely had those things, and he works very hard. He collaborates with the scene. He is active in Discords and online and on Twitch. If that's what it takes to become known in a scene and transcend just being known as an anime dude and to get more opportunities, maybe that's something people should have to do. I don't think that's selling out. There's nothing wrong with the amount of time you put into record, script, edit a video, put it out, SEO, all of that. You want some sort of ROI, right? And I don't know what it takes, but maybe that's what some AniTubers need to do, is like just realize that we're spending too much time hating on one another. We're spending too much time trying to bring down one another when there are great creators and we can all elevate each other. And not everyone's going to get to the top, but you still need to focus on the fact that there is a reason why CDawg VA has grown so much. Connor creates great content. Look at all the adjacent content he makes with Chris from abroad in Japan and everything else. Like, there is something that you can learn from it. You don't have to take away every single element, but it is a calculated journey that they're going on, and that's why their numbers are increasing. And obviously it's easier to grow the bigger you are, but if you want to stay rooted in anime, there are things that you have to pull from other YouTubers. It's not rocket science. It's hard when you're fighting against an algorithm that is invisible, but I do believe that there are a lot of AniTubers that just really need to like sit down, look at the scene, look at what they've been doing wrong, look at all the time they've been spending trying to tear down bigger creators and then grow. And maybe it won't happen, but like, and I do have some realization of what you're saying is correct, but I'm not so pessimistic. I do think that in 2-3 years time we can have, I don't know, like maybe it's anime back when, maybe it's Durcoin, maybe it's Algae, maybe it's any of these creators that is going to hit 100K because they're really great, but maybe they're going to stop
Hiding in
talking
Public
less about.
is a pretty notable example because he was like only a year, like 2 years. He got like 100,000 in about a year or two.
Yeah,
You know, or like whatever. But it's like, you know, this is it might just be me talking myself out of it, right? Where I was just mentioning the whole comment thing and like the attention you might get. But like, you know, I see with like Evanito as well, he got like 100,000 really, really quickly. And that's in part because he was able to kind of lean his content away from anime into something that's, you know, he wrote this trend with Among Us and, you know, and collaborating with a lot of other bigger creators and just kind of got like this fan base of people that really just care about him and not so much about what he's saying, but like him. And I think it's the same thing with Trixie, where she was, you know, saying really insightful, interesting things about anime, but also people were gravitating towards her as a person, as a cult of personality, you know? There are some channels that I think work without the cult of personality, and they're more informational and generalized channels that I don't think you could really make with anime. But a lot of channels, you know, like myself, it's hard for me to put myself in my content. It's the same with Beyond Ghibli or Steven that like, I mean, Beyond Ghibli's already gotten 100,000, but like, you know, it's, to me, I see it as like, all right, then what? You know what I mean? It still needs to be sustainable. Like it is just kind of a number. And there is such an idea as like empty subscribers where like you had like Nux talked about it, where like there is such a thing as like a dead channel where you see something like Mystic Chronexia, 1 million subscribers, nothing for views, 2,000, 3,000, like nothing, they're dead. And so like, and that just happens, it's inevitable. And so it's like that can happen, you know, and it's like, yeah, the big number could potentially influence it, but I think there's also a bit of a lure. If you're on YouTube a lot, like I am, or some of the other people, you actually kind of get a little joy out of finding a content creator that's small and is making really good stuff, but he's under 1,000 subscribers, and you're like,
yeah.
only I know about this guy, you know, and like it feels kind of like it feels a little more cult and like interesting and like intriguing in that way. I don't know. It's, to me, I always try to find rationales and try to talk myself out of like wanting to, I think as humans, we want the big number to go up. We want number to go up. Like that's an inevitable human desire. But it's sort of like the content really has to be something you enjoy at the end of the day. Because if you get that success, but you got it through making a lot of these videos you don't even want to rewatch yourself. You know, what was it? You got plaque. That's cool. I can't knock that. I want a plaque. Are you kidding? You know, like it's
That's the validation. Yeah.
You see it. You see the plaque. And you're like, oh, I want that. Like, yeah, of course. You know, with all the work that you put into videos and into cultivating your channel and your community, of course. No, but it's just really tough. I can't imagine with like people making this your career and stuff. Like I can't help but see Anime Matt with like, you know, he was so close to 100,000 and he was doing the weekly thing and trying to make YouTube a thing and trying to do the algorithm stuff for years. And he just like, and he just he just almost got there. And I think he will get 100,000, of course. I do think he'll make it, which is awesome. He deserves it. But at what cost, right? He kind of like barely makes it over there now. And yeah, this whole thing where he's like, I'm going to stop doing like the weekly thing and try to dial it back and make something more casual, something that I want to make, and something that's a lot more friendly to him and something that he's interested in, right? And it's not the grind in the same way. But you know, it's tough when like, you know, YouTube doesn't reward you with the hardworking content that you make, and you just don't have the incentive to make videos anymore. You only make the incentive because you like making videos, right? And that's kind of like the thing that keeps Bob coming back, and what keeps like Kevin Ya coming back, or like, you know, like I noticed that What the One hasn't made a video in a while, or MathWiz hasn't made a video in a while, and there was a long stretch of time where Kevin hadn't, but now he's back. Or like Under the Scope, right? Like I think Under the Scope because he has a full job now, right? He's not like in college in the same way.
Yeah.
So and it's sad when you see other channels that I think Anime Every Day got to 100,000. I have to see how much he got, but like I remember, I think he did, and then he was gone one day, man, and he completely went dark. No, he made it to 94. Or you know what? I bet he did make it to 100K, and then he's been dead for 3 years.
So yeah,
his last video was 3 years ago, so I think it's just natural fall off.
Yeah.
But I do think he made it to 100,000 at one point.
Wow.
But like and then one day they just leave. You know what I mean?
Tough.
So it's like, it's a transient thing. It's hard to be motivated in that way in the grand scheme of anime YouTube. I think like with Digest, it's a lot for me, so that I'm able to like talk about other people's videos and like have a community, like talk with other content creators and stuff. Because having that, I care a lot. I've said this is like an ancient adage of mine at this point, since I've been at the sites for so long, but I care more about who watches my stuff than how many people. Because it's really cool when, it's nice when you see the big number, but what else is cool? You see this channel that you've looked up to for a long time comment on one of your videos. Like when I had Trixie comment on my Revias video, which my Revias video, it's puny, didn't get a lot of views, and I was pretty discouraged with how little traction it would always. It's still gotten. I still don't think it's reached 10K yet. Let me see. And it's been out for like 4 years. Although if you look up Revias, it's one of the first videos to come up. 4 years ago, 5,000 views. But like I still remember, like all of a sudden, Trixie commented on that video. It was like, oh, she knows who I am, and that was huge to me. Or after my first Berserk video, I was working on this how to anime video, but it was taking a long time because I was putting so much effort into it and like editing it and stuff. So I made this update video saying I wasn't dead because I hadn't uploaded a video since June, and it was like September at that point. I just felt so bad, whatever. And so I made it. I kind of made it aesthetic and like, because I still wanted like, I didn't want to just make a random video. I also just, I don't know, there's something about it. I didn't want to like put my voice to it or something. So it was like kind of more of aesthetic, weird thing. And Unique Nemosaurus commented on it. I didn't even know he knew about my stuff. And he was like, "Oh my God, you put this much effort in an update video, right?" And I actually had lower comment on a similar thing where he's like, "I like that you couched your update video in a video people would actually click on. I appreciate that." And like stuff like that, right? And like seeing Stephen comment on stuff, or like, and knowing that Beyond Ghibli watches my stuff and things like that, or that even with AniTube Digest again, like the fact that Joey shouts that out, even though I didn't actually know that he had seen it. All I knew is that Connor knew about it because I had mentioned something about like a tier list, or they did like an AniTube tier list or something like that with Trash Taste, where they mentioned something along those lines. And
I remember
they said
that.
some problem that I don't even remember what it was. Whatever. And I made this thread, and then like Connor like reached out, and we actually talked on Discord, and that was really, really cool. To be able to do that sort of stuff and that sort of networking connection, it's exciting because they know what you've been through. I know, we have a camaraderie here because we both made videos, right? And we can talk about the creative process and our perspectives when creating our channels or our videos and stuff like that. And that mutual sharing is interesting and like valuable. And that's way more valuable than like a random anon commenting on my Berserk video, right? Like the one that gets like the big views, like the 500,000 or whatever. I got kind of tired of looking at all the comments by the 200,000 mark. By the time it got like 200,000, however many comments it has, I just like, oh, it's the same comment. Yes, you're so original. Yeah, I've never gotten this comment before, ever. Not like the one that's like highly thumbed up at all. What if Madhouse made it? It's not discouraging, but it's just like exhausting. So I just like the game kind of sucks. So I don't like playing it. So it's like I like making videos, and I like talking with Jack and Core and Eden and Urban, who made videos at one point and hasn't made videos. Like, again, people just don't make videos in a while. Roger Smith hasn't made a video in a while. Joe from Pulse is like he's making one right now, probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. It's interesting at this point.
Is AniTube Digest and your second channel fulfilling you in ways that when you first started they would? Or are you still working towards getting them to what you want them to be?
No, they're about where I wanted them to be. I'm doing new stuff now with the second channel, with like this live stream stuff, and it's a new frontier for me. Like, it's a very unexplored idea of like YouTubers, of anime YouTubers doing Twitch and live streaming. Because live streaming is a huge component now. It's actually very popular. But a lot of YouTuber and a lot of like, Darn Joey Giga and Connor, and also like Mudon and Evan and some other people, like they're doing some stuff on Twitch, but getting very little traction with that because it's difficult to translate an anime related. How do you do an anime related live stream, right? Like how do you do that for 2 hours, right? It's a lot easier to do like a just chatting or a video game, right? Like just do an anime related video game or something. We're just do a video game, it's hard to make like an analytical live stream and stuff. I will say the only one that I've seen it really do something interesting with it is Nearly on Red. Theta from Nearly on Red. He's mostly on Twitch right now. And it's because like he kind of got screwed with YouTube and stuff with like Sony was just being a dick to him with like copyright strikes and stuff. But like he's moved mainly on Twitch, and he does a lot of regular content where he's analyzing episodes of anime that are coming out on his Twitch channel, and like he's able to sustain an audience like that, and it's awesome. I've had ideas for big video ideas, and in the middle of doing that research, I'm like, this is interesting. I could show this on stream. I could be doing this research as we're doing on stream, right? Like comparing the anime to the manga of something, going page by page, like being real. Like obviously, there's people have made videos about comparing the anime to the manga, of course, but it's very holistic and like planned in that way. But like you've never seen a stream where they're going, or a video where they're going page by page, and what did they do different, and like really breaking it down to the very, very small nuances. That's something that's kind of allowed it on a very regular stream that kind of goes for a long time. And the same thing with this anime encyclopedia. Like I could just read the entire thing, but it'll be a very solo project for who knows how long, and maybe I'll lose interest. Another thing with the stream is that like it's a regular thing that again with Digest too, it's habitual. Like I'm doing it every Monday, and that even if I don't really, even if I'm not up for it, even if I see the videos that I'm subscribed to, I've only clicked so many as watch later, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of a scant offering. I have to go all the way back and really look and do what videos should I really watch, and sometimes it's not a great offering. Some weeks it's kind of dry, but the habitualness is what's really important, and in order to keep doing it, to keep the spirit up, right? But this book is huge. I'd lose interest in it if I was like, or I'd go into the weeds or something, right? This gives me a structure. So I think right now I'm using the second channel in new creative ways. I also started this series that it's probably going to be a patron only thing where like I review anime completely randomly, like completely blind. Like I spin a wheel and an anime will pop up and I have to review it for 5 minutes. Something like that I think was really interesting. So I'm doing new things with the second channel, but as for Digest, I think it's pretty much exactly what it needs to be, and I don't really need to improve, make it better. Obviously I could be a better commentator in places or practice or have more notes prepared or something, but I like where it is right now. I'm very satisfied with it. Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of what you're doing, and also your recent content is great. I've been a little bit burnt out from AniTube just because I've been consuming so much and speaking with so many AniTubers this year, but what Trixie is doing, it's classic Trixie. It makes me so happy to hear, and what you're doing, especially your Blu-ray, your Blu-ray video, A fucking
Thank you.
one. That was such like okay, be honest. How long did it take you to do that video?
Well, it took me 2 months to write it. That was yeah.
Listen, honestly, bravo. I know sometimes if someone saying, "Hey, great work," isn't enough, but
I know.
like watching that video, it really solidified everything that I thought about you. And that's why I was really looking forward to doing this interview with you, because
Thank you.
I can tell you are a real creative, and just you passing along that knowledge, collaborating with others, and giving us facts that will benefit anime and benefit the fans, and it's going to stay on the internet forever, and it will stand the test of time. That is what AniTube needs more of, and that's why I'm so happy to hear that, like, you're mentioning the habitualness of AniTube Digest, and you're going to keep on continuing that, but also you're going into uncharted waters with your other channel. Keep that up. I know maybe it's not a lot coming from me, but just please keep that up, because I
No, I
need
really appreciate
more
that.
creators like you.
I'm happy to be encouraged in that way, because again, like I told you before we started recording, that this is a very solitary experience, and something that's like sometimes you don't appreciate what you put out there unless you hear it from people, and even a comment. But like even doing this directly face to face, it means a lot. I really appreciate it.
What would you like to see from anime throughout this next decade?
Boy, good shit. Please.
You're asking
Honestly.
for too much. You're asking for way too much. Come on.
I am. Oh god. No. I don't really. I don't know. I don't have any expectations, because I like being pleasantly surprised. I like the fact that I also think you get disappointed if you really want specific things, like please adapt 20th Century Boys, or you know, like.
Don't say that. Oh, don't say that. Oh my god. That cut me.
Right?
Oh.
Right? No, but like, I'm happy that if like, you know, I'm pining for Pluto. Like, I know Pluto's happening, and I'm excited and looking forward to it. But like, if it's very articulate in mind, it's like, oh boy, I hope Hayao Miyazaki gets to release that movie before he dies. Yeah, like that would be nice. But it's like, just get like, even just in the past week or two, the delightful surprise of having a new Yasuhiko movie, a new Yas movie with the new Gundam, like Kurora's Island, like adapting that random episode of Gundam into a movie, like directed by the guy behind Venus Wars and Crusher Joe, and has these incredibly good character designs, great industry person. That's awesome. Like that's something I didn't expect to have. Great. Or fucking Heike Monogatari, which just came out 2 days ago. The new Science Saru anime directed by Naoko Yamada, the KyoAni veteran. No one was expecting that or like asking for it, but sure, let's have it. Yes, it's good. It's very good. Like stuff I could be like, oh, I hope for more original anime. Honestly, I kind of hoping. I'm a little. This is anime glut, right? There's a little too much anime happening. As bad as it would be, and I don't want to wish actual ill will on anybody, but like if the industry were to crash, and there was just not a lot of anime that came out a particular year, I'd be okay with that. Because that just means it's catch-up time, you know? And like anime is just so great, and I haven't experienced nearly enough of it, as surprising as that may be, that it's like, what am I looking for the next? Not really much of anything. I'm looking forward to Chainsaw. I'm looking forward to what's been generally confirmed, because I could go off in the weeds of like, oh, I want another season of Kaiji, I want another season of this, that, and the other thing. But it's wishful thinking, in my opinion.
Shaybs, I want to say thank you so much for your time. This was an incredible interview, and talking to you about being a creator, being an anime fan, what you hope for this scene, and just everything else, it was very enlightening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I love these conversations, and I just like being able to articulate my thoughts into words and to share them with somebody. I like talking people's ears off, because at least in a format that's like words, and you know what I mean?
No, I feel you. Is there anything that you would like to plug? Any videos coming up you want to maybe give us a little teaser for?
The one I'm working on right now. I mean, it's weird with me right now because like next week I have like next weekend I go on vacation, so like my release schedule is kind of messed up in that way. Like I won't be able to stream and stuff. But I'm still doing this anime encyclopedia thing that I'm working on. And AniTube Digest is every week. I want to have like I want to start making a couple like some AMVs and stuff. I have some. I wanted to make an Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 AMV because it was just a great movie, and I would have loved to. I'd love to like work and play with it or whatever. But like that's pipe dream, whatever. There's a lot of like AMVs in general, short ideas. But like I'm hoping to bang those out. And there's nothing huge on the horizon in the same way. Like I like being able to make these shorter main channel videos that are just like, here's a thought, here's something that happened this week that I've been thinking about as this little mini idea that I don't have to embellish and make into this grand 30-minute point or something, or this multifaceted whatever. And also make a huge spectacle out of it. I like making spectacle out of my videos, but it's just I'd rather get stuff out. You know what I mean? That's where I like the direction of that right now. It's very fresh for me, so it's exciting. I will say that the video I'm working on right now that I want to that will be coming up next on the main channel that I have recorded is this idea that cream doesn't rise to the top when it comes to anime or like a lot of things, I guess, where there's a difference between popularity and quality. And I think that sounds like a stupid obvious point to make, but like a lot of us, we wish that Odd Taxi would get seen by more people. And like it's like it's like, we want it to be more popular, but like because of its circumstances, that has nothing to do with its quality and nothing to do with it really. It's outside circumstances, like who was it made by, when was it made? It was made during this time of anime glut that like there's just way too much coming out. Like, of course, it gets lost in the shuffle, and not even everything can get properly advertised to people. So it's like a frustrated like amount of word of mouth, and you can only do that for so long before it kind of fizzles, whatever. Like it reminds me of Tonkatsu DJ Agataro, actually, because it's like it's a really good show, but it just like is in the spring 2016 where like a lot of crazy shit came out or whatever. So it's just sort of like acknowledging it as like, look, I won't spoil the quote I have at the end, but I'm very proud of it. Of like I won't say what it is, but it's nice. It's so I just like what I'm making right now, but yeah, there's nothing particularly to plug, I suppose.
Cool. Looking forward to future releases from you, and obviously AniTube Digest every single week. It's so fun. Like AniTube Digest, Trash Taste, the official podcast. Like those are the programs I really look forward to. I will be editing.
Thank you.
Always. As soon as I get the notification, I put everything on pause. I turn it on, and I'm just like, oh, all right, it's time for me to wait. Bad? That's not a bad video. That's a great video, but you know what I mean? Like, I just really enjoy your content so much, and I look forward to it because you do put some of your personality in there, and you open up my eyes to so many different creatives on the scene. I value what you do so much as any other YouTuber on this platform. So thank you so much for everything that you do, and thank you so much for your time on this interview.
It means a lot. Thank you so much. This was a great time. Yo, peace.
Thank you. This was Kero Riripado. Thank you guys for coming by. Take care, y'all.